Hello everybody, thank you very much for sticking with us. We're almost there, almost at the end. My name's John Campbell. I'm the Managing Director of Rabbit and Pork. For those who've not visited us upstairs and learnt the reason why we're called Rabbit and Pork, it's Cockney rhyming slang for talk, so that's where we got the name from. Please do visit us upstairs and grab one of our rabbits. We've got 500 of them. We don't want to have to carry them all the way back to London. So Rabbit and Pork is part of the TP Group, which is a larger organisation, and specifically Rabbit and Pork, we're all about voice experience, so where we can put voice as part of your brand's experience with your client. And these are just some of the clients that we've worked with across insurance, across finance, and a few entertainment brands as well. We do a few different areas of kind of services around building voice apps, working on kind of more custom assistance in products. We're also one of Amazon's official Alexa smart property solution providers in the EU. But specifically, I'm going to be talking today about voice search. So I'm going to start off with a little video.
Alexa, how can I eat up my steak bake? Alexa, play Like a Virgin by Madonna.
So if you've not seen that, that's the fantastic Mandy, which is a comedy on the BBC, and it's all about how I see that voice is now obviously mainstream, and what we see with voice search is that events in your house, that example of there was Mandy with her Greg's steak bake. For those Americans that have not had a steak bake, it's one of the delicacies of life in the UK. If you're hungover, you need to revitalise yourself, a couple of steak bakes and you'll be all right. So in that example, she was asking Alexa that question because she had a need at that time. And what we find with voice search is that there's lots of these scenarios where people are turning to their smart speaker. They used to turn to their phone or their laptop to ask a question. So that could be whether they're watching TV and they want to know who the voice was behind a particular actor, food, how to cook something, they've just spilt something on the floor, events throughout the year, or whether it's your kids doing some homework and they need to basically find out the answers to their homework questions and cheat. And we know that voice search is one of the top use cases for using a smart speaker. So that's whether the data that comes from Amazon in terms of how more people are turning to voice, whether that's Brett Kinsella's research from VoiceBot, or whether that's from the Voice Consumer Index, where we see huge amounts of people constantly using voice search on a daily basis. But what we found is that voice search is still in its infancy, and it's quite hard to sometimes quantify the value. But what we're doing with our clients at Rabbit and Pork is trying to understand how much demand there is for voice search, what areas and what products that demand is coming from, and then how can you generate some value out of optimizing for voice. So to start off with, how are people searching? What are people searching for? And for 10 years before I was working in voice, I was working in SEO. And if you work in SEO or PPC, it's mature, you have the data. So you can quickly, easily jump on one of these tools, whether it's SEMrush, whether it's Google Trends or Keyword Planner. And in this example, we can see it's bamboo plates. So we know there's around 3,000 people searching for that. If I get a click-through rate and my conversion rate's here, then I know how much money I'm going to potentially make. Whereas for voice, we're still a little bit lacking in this data. The providers that are here, Amazon and Google, don't really provide keyword tools. They don't really kind of give any indication at keyword level, which would allow us as marketers to basically decide how much value there is. So in the last few years, I've been trying to hunt for this data and find it. So two methods that we use, and you can use these methods as well, is we have voice search ranking reports. So very similar to traditional SEO ranking reports. We take a whole list of key phrases, maybe 5,000, 6,000 key phrases. We ask Alexa the question, we record the answer. What website did they pull from? Did they pull from the knowledge graph? Did they pull from local listings? And how can we optimize for it? The other location is Alexa Answers. So this is a platform when if you would ask Alexa a question and Alexa can't answer it, they put it to the community, and the community can then answer that question for you. A few years ago, it was totally unmoderated. So people were asking questions, then people were writing terrible answers, and you could ask Alexa, and then all of a sudden, Alexa would be telling you that the best way to stop your cats from climbing up your Christmas tree was to put an electric fence around your Christmas tree. Just one of the examples out there. So what we've been doing is we thought, right, this is a great source of data because it's actually real voice searches. So we use some tools, we scrape this data on a weekly basis. And this is the website, so you can see here we've got, a bit hard to read, but it kind of says in bold, who is Paul Webster, and then there's an answer, and we get some statistics on that. This is in the United States, it's in Canada, in the UK, and just to kind of give you an indication of volume, in 2021, there was about 250,000 questions answered, and those answers were shared 20 million times. So it's a small subset of all the things that people are asking Alexa, but it's a good enough data set to create some proxies. So we see these types of key phrases, you know, does McDonald's have an eggnog shake? In cricket, what's a Jaffa? If anybody knows what a Jaffa is, do you knows what a Jaffa is? What is the National Geographic? What flavour is the pink pot noodle? I'm not sure it's a natural flavour. But all this information is in what we've been scraping, and we pop that into a report. So some of the findings that we found was that the most common questions always start with what, how, and who. So these are the people that are asking questions about particular products or particular services or processes. And so what we see with our clients is that we need to replicate that language when we're building our content on our website. Alexa and Google will quite often pull content from your website to answer in the search in the voice search results. So when you're thinking about adding FAQs to your website, you need to replicate that language that people are using with Alexa. We also saw that we get timestamp data when every one of these questions were asked. So we can see the impact of COVID. So the grey line there is 2019. So when people were working from the office, they wouldn't have been able to use their smart speakers. And then we can see from 2020 and 2021, there's an increased amount of usage during the day. We have this data also in the report split by different categories. So for sports, you can see on a Saturday in the UK, we have a 3 p.m. Kickoffs for the football, soccer, and then we can see that there's an increased amount of people asking questions. And for the kids ones, you can see that there's not much search volume during the day, and then when it's home time and it's school, we can start to see the kids asking those questions. But what does demand look like? So we can actually get some indication of a search volume, traditionally what we saw with the voice and SEO keyword tools, with the keyword tools. And there's no kind of X percentage is voice, X percentage is via web. It changes according to each different key phrase. So some key phrases are going to be more oriented towards voice search, the longer ones. So for example, how long do I cook a 5 kilo turkey? We can see it's averaging about 4,000 searches on the voice devices, where if we take that exact key phrase, not many people are actually typing in that. Most likely they'll be typing in turkey cooking instructions, something a little bit shorter. And then we can see some key phrases, like how many grams in a tablespoon. We can see that both platforms have a value. So what we end up having is, with clients, we have key phrases that are for their website optimization, key phrases for their voice search optimization, and then we will see some of them that blend across both of those sections. So because we're scraping this data, and there's somebody from Amazon sat over there, we can't really charge for this, but what we do is we publish it on our website. So you can go to the website, or you could probably search for voice search key phrase tool, and on there there's this data studio report. You can see the question, the category, and what the answer was. If that QR code doesn't work, you can just have a quick Google for it. And so every month we update the data in here. So you'll see, recently we saw lots of questions about when the Queen passed away. Everybody was asking about the funeral. And so we'll update that on a regular basis. So we go through that process with our clients, but we also then can pull in more supplementary data, which is similar to voice search data. So for that, there's a few tools I would recommend. So Answer the Public. So Answer the Public, you put in a STEM key phrase, such as bamboo plates, and then that gives you then all of the kind of conversational questions about bamboo plates. PPAA, so that people also ask, so that appears in the Google search results. Keep clicking on it and it will expand the list. And then the third place we also look is internal site search, and it would be a bonus if you've got voice search on your website, you'll be able to take those key phrases and then put them into your voice key phrase report. So if you find out that people are searching for your brand or your products, you then think, well, then how can I gain value from this? So what's the point in me as a brand trying to optimize for voice search? So in traditional search, we've always talked about this kind of 4 different intents. So we have informational intent, so that's where somebody's trying to get a piece of information, an answer to a particular question. And so for us, the value there is that bambooplates.co.uk has then an audio impression. You know, Google will read out your brand name, your brand domain, and then the user is then aware of it. So the value there is an audio impression. Even better would be maybe navigational. So traditionally in a navigational search on web would be the website name or the brand name. So here it could be open John Lewis, which is a brand in the UK, so open their Alexa skill. And we obviously know with an Alexa skill, you can then do purchases, you can send links to users' phones, you can make a transaction. So the value there is greater. The last 2, commercial and transactional, so is where if you're not Amazon, it's going to be really hard for you to gain any value out of that. And this is the whole reason why maybe Alexas are out there, is because Jeff wants to sell you some products at the end of the day. So he's been using it to, you know, help you set alarms, play music, but essentially whenever you ask Alexa a question with any purchase intent, they will always then recommend a product to be bought from the Amazon store. So in that example for the brand, unless you're selling on Amazon and you become the Amazon choice product in that category, it's hard to gain some value from that. But what we really see in the future is the idea of, yes, we can answer this question, so how long do you cook a frozen Yorkshire pudding, and Aunt Bessie's provides the answer, and then we calculate voice visibility scores. Really what Aunt Bessie's wants to do is to open an Alexa skill, have a back and forth continued conversation, so you then have voice visibility, but then you'd also maybe get some a conversion from that in the future. So how would we put this all together? So with our clients, we go through this 3-step process. So first of all, we research what our users are voice searching for. So you can do this process yourself. We automate a lot of this process just for scale and for efficiency. So we create a voice key phrase list. We categorize our key phrases into buckets, and then we check what does Alexa and what does Google answer. Where's the opportunity for us to create new content, or where's the opportunity for us to maybe outrank a competitor? So we automate that process. If not, you can sit at home and just ask those questions to your device. We then want to build content that answers those key questions. So my suggestion here is you do this both for web and you both do this for your voice apps. So from a web point of view, Google will generally use the answer box results. So that's the little snippet of information that appears at the top of a website, a search result. So this is all about answering the question, as we mentioned before, using the language that people are voice searching for. So here in this example is, can bamboo plates go in the dishwasher? And then we give as much of a direct answer. There's different types of answer box results. So sometimes if it's like, what are the best types of plates? That's maybe where you'd have more list-oriented content. Then from an Alexa skill point of view, you want to load those questions into utterance lists, and then you want to put that forward for a feature they call name-free invocation. So name-free invocation is where a user can just say the name, a generic name, and then Alexa will suggest their product. And what quite often happens is that you'll start to create an app structure. So the structure of your voice app should maybe also replicate that of your website. So in the example here of a John Lewis voice app, we can optimize for our informational searches by having product FAQ content. We have our navigational open in the Alexa skill. Commercial, we basically can have reviews. So if somebody asks, can you recommend, we've got content there. And then transactional. So a lot of companies now are looking at building voice e-commerce, and then you'll be able to optimize for those 4 different intents of search. So you've built your Alexa skill. It's based upon real data, real search, real demand, but then how do you drive that first time interaction so somebody uses your skill? So we've used a few different methods. So for our client LV, we used our own channels. So for LV, we built an Alexa skill that answers voice insurance questions. And so for there, every single customer that signs up to an LV insurance product, they receive an email with their confirmation. Here's your policy documents. If you ever need to get in contact with us, this is the email address. This is the telephone number, and we have a little call to action to say, you can now ask Alexa or Google about LV breakdown insurance. We also send out newsletters, and then when the phone lines at LV close at 8 o'clock at night, we then also have a recorded message which says, we can't answer your call at the moment, try and ask your smart speaker, and we'll be able to answer your questions there. For Super 6, Sky Bet, we have our paid channels, so we've been creating video content and other content, which allows us to then have paid optimization towards that, so on Facebook, on Instagram, etc. And you might have heard coming hopefully soon from Amazon is promoted skills. So this is where on the Echo Show devices, you'd be able to have a little screen, an image for 30 seconds that will appear, and then the user will be able to click on it and it will open their Alexa skill. So this is kind of like digital out-of-home advertising in your home. And so we can see this being a really popular thing with FMCG brands or other kind of insurance companies, maybe to get a quick quote via voice or a product recommendation. So just to end up, people do voice search for very strange things. So in our data, we see some of these. So Alexa, why did people say that you work for the CIA? Seems quite appropriate. Seems the Pentagon's just down the road. Obviously a child, what animal can hold its breath for longer, a sloth or a dolphin? Obviously they don't quite understand where those animals live. Did George Washington have a computer? So we've obviously been learning about American history while we're here, but I'm pretty sure that the Apple one wasn't out while George Washington was around. And then my favorite, who's your daddy? Jeff Bezos. So all of these key phrases are in those voice search reports, so you can see them. You can head to the website to find that report. You can also look at some of our past in-depth reports into FMCG and into brand performance as well. So hopefully you found that informative. If you have any questions, I'll be outside afterwards to answer any questions. But hopefully that was a quick understanding and a quick review of voice search. Thanks very much.